Hello there, my name is Dan Donovan and welcome to my presentation on semi-structured interviews. So what is a semi-structured interview? Well, it's an interview approach where the interviewer identifies a list of questions that they want to ask a candidate. However, these questions can be asked in any particular order. So for example, if you have a list of 10 questions and a candidate enters a room and they're talking about something that relates to question 8, you might start at question 8 and then go back to the beginning and ask questions 1 through 7 and then 9 and 10. So there's a lot of flexibility. Further, you want to remember to have your questions being open-ended, so asking your who, what, when, where, and why questions and avoiding just simple yes or no questions. The questions that are asked in a semi-structured interview are going to follow two categories. You're going to have your thematic questions, which relate and are predetermined to align with the program that you're trying to evaluate, and then your follow-up questions. Follow-up questions are those questions that are going to be improvised in a semi-structured interview, and this is something that's a notable feature of it. You can ask follow-up questions, and it works best after you use some other data point, such as a survey or an observation, and you want to focus in on a few candidates to get more information from them. So how does a semi-structured interview differ from an unstructured interview? Well, in an unstructured interview, the questions aren't planned ahead of time. You might just pose a topic and let the candidate share out their experiences. And so the interviewee is going to guide the conversation, and they have the freedom to share as much or as little as they want. They don't have to share everything they know on a topic if they don't feel comfortable, which contrasts a semi-structured interview as the questions and both parties really guide the conversation forward, and candidates who are being interviewed must answer all questions. Typically, in an unstructured interview, the candidate holds all the information and they're really speaking from their experiences, and they'll talk for a much longer period of time, whereas in a semi-structured interview, both parties have knowledge regarding the topic. So what are the benefits and disadvantages of using a semi-structured interview? Well, interviews are great for needs analysis. As the evaluator, you're going to know a lot about the program itself, and you're going to know what a successful candidate who's fully adopted into the program, what their skill sets look like. So you'll be able to see as you talk to people what skill sets they have or what's missing. It's also great for perception. An upstream stakeholder might have a very different opinion than that of a downstream stakeholder. So you'll see ideas from all levels in the organization. Participants are going to feel more empowered too, because they're going to be talking to you one-on-one and feel more free to share. And this contrasts something like a focus group, because in a focus group, there might be a lot of people in the organization, and because of that number of people, people might feel a little shy or worried about saying something for various reasons in front of a group of people. And because there are follow-up questions which are improvised, semi-structured interviews are definitely the most conversational. Some disadvantages are in regards to the amount of time and the money that it takes to conduct interviews. You have to take the time to interview the candidate, but then you have to transcribe those interviews, and therefore you're only going to reach a small group of participants. Surveys, you might get thousands of participants, but in interviews, you're probably going to get under 100 just due to time and money. And as a result, those interviews might result in contradictions, and that might be due to a lack of perspective on a topic. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to go back into the field and conduct more interviews to either validate or invalidate answers. Conversations can get off topic, and because you're improvising the questions, not all interviews will look the same. How do you prepare for an interview like this? You're going to identify those that you want to interview, then you're going to develop your list of questions. You might practice those questions on a sample set of people, and then you're going to go back to the stakeholders and have them determine if those questions are the right ones that need to be asked in order to figure out if the data that you want to collect. And then you'll present it to the actual candidates. This is an example of what a semi-structured interview can look like. It comes from our Watkinson, West Myers, and Visser readings. As you can see in section 1, these are the predetermined questions that follow the themes, and you're going to ask them all to the candidates. And then you're going to use space 2 to write their responses. And then in space 3, you'll write any follow-up questions and then their answers. What's notable is that you might not need to have a follow-up question for all the questions. You'll only use it when you need to. And so then, just to close out, just some tips for conducting an interview. Make sure that you are familiar with the questions ahead of time. You need to be prepared. And then most importantly, you're going to want to ask the candidate's permission in order to record the conversation or have an additional person in the room just to record what it is that they are saying. This is because when you finish the interview, you want to go back and listen and write down what it is that they're saying so you can properly code and identify themes that exist from all of your different interviews. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my video on semi-structured interviews.